Before we proceed, a word of caution. This content demands discretion from its audience. Presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes, what follows is a dramatized reconstruction based on federal courtroom proceedings and public testimony. Step into this narrative with eyes wide open, for the truth unfolds in the stark light of justice. What if Michael Jackson's final words weren't a delusion, but a warning? What if the man who built an empire on Biggie's grave was waiting in the shadows when the king of pop took his last breath? This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is sworn testimony. And today, the courtroom isn't judging one man. It's putting an entire industry on trial. Stay, watch. Because when Kanye says, "Tell them it's Puffy," you'll never hear the word justice the same way again. The federal courtroom hums like a live wire. Wooden benches creak under the weight of reporters, their pens poised, eyes locked on the witness stand. Jurors sit rigid, their faces a mix of dread and curiosity. At the defense table, Sean Diddy Combs adjusts his tie, his polished exterior betraying nothing yet. The air is thick, suffocating, as if the walls themselves hold secrets too heavy to contain. Then Kanye West steps forward. No entourage, no bravado. Just a man in black, his silhouette sharp against the courtroom's fluorescent glow. His hands tremble faintly, but his gaze is unyielding. He removes his sunglasses, revealing eyes that carry years of unspoken truths. The gallery holds its breath. "I'm not here to talk about music," Kanye says, his voice low, deliberate, each syllable a stone dropped into still water. "I'm here to talk about murder." Gasps ripple through the room. A juror's notebook slips to the floor. The judge's gavel slams, demanding order, but the tension coils tighter, unbreakable. Kanye's words aren't just testimony. They're a detonation, and the shrapnel is about to fly. Kanye leans into the microphone, his voice softening as if confiding in the jurors alone. Michael Jackson wasn't just the king of pop, he says. He was a titan, a man who owned half of Sony's catalog, who dared to challenge the machine that made him, and they crushed him for it. He paints a vivid picture. Michael in his final days, holed up in a Los Angeles mansion, his once vibrant spirit reduced to whispers. Kanye claims the Jackson family shared a voicemail with him, one never meant for public ears. "I heard it," he says, his voice catching. Michael was terrified, breathing like he was running from something. "I don't feel safe," he said. "He's here. I know he is. Tell them it's Puffy. He knows he's here. Please protect the kids." The courtroom freezes. A juror's pen hovers midair. Diddy grips the edge of the table, his knuckles whitening, his face a mask of control, but his eyes flicker, betraying a crack in his armor. His lawyers whisper urgently, their briefcases snapping open like gunfire. Kanye presses on, unrelenting. "Michael knew," he says, his words a blade slicing through the silence. He knew who was hunting him, and he named him. Kanye's finger jabs toward a name scrawled on a courtroom exhibit. Fahim Muhammad, Diddy's security chief, Michael's bodyguard in 2009. A man who, Kanye insists, was no guardian but a gatekeeper. "Why?" he asks, his voice rising. "Would the most famous man on earth entrust his life to a 20-year-old fresh out of Sacramento State? No high-level training, no experience, just connections." The jurors lean forward as Kanye unravels the thread. Fahim, he claims, was planted, not by Michael, but by Diddy's network. A faded transcript from the 2011 Conrad Murray trial flickers on a screen, confirming Fahim's role was arranged through industry insiders tied to Diddy. Kanye's voice drops to a chilling whisper. Fahim had everything. Michael's schedule, his prescriptions, his fears. He wasn't there to protect him. He was there to control him. Then, a bombshell. Kanye reveals Fahim's guest lecture at the prestigious Wharton School, a detail that lands like a grenade. "What kind of bodyguard speaks at Wharton?" he demands, pacing the stand. "Not one who carries a gun, one who carries a mission." Whispers ripple through the gallery. Was Fahim an intelligence operative? Kanye doesn't say it outright, but the implication hangs heavy, a shadow stretching across the room. He leans in, voice low. They say Fahim cleared hard drives after Michael died, erased security footage, and now he runs Diddy's empire. Kanye points to a printed page from Lil Rod's lawsuit, alleging Fahim was an enforcer who made people and problems disappear. The jurors' eyes widen. First Michael, Kanye says, then me. Who's next? Kanye's eyes darken as he revisits the voicemail, this time with a detail that cuts deeper. Michael was whispering, he says, like he knew the walls were listening. Like he was already half gone. The final words, tell them it's Puffy, echo in the courtroom like a ghost plea, each syllable a weight on the jurors' shoulders. He describes Michael's last days, isolated, cut off from his trusted team, surrounded by strangers with security badges. His own staff were replaced, Kanye says, his voice cracking for a moment. Industry plants, every one of them. Fahim was the key. He pauses, letting the silence speak. And the cameras? The ones supposed to protect the king? They failed the night he died. Footage wiped. Just like the tunnels in Diddy's raids. You think that's a coincidence? The judge calls for order as murmurs swell. Kanye doesn't flinch. He drops a theory that makes the room spin. What if Michael wasn't meant to die from propofol? What if they panicked? What if someone pulled the plug too soon? A financial breakdown flashes on a screen. Michael's billions in publishing rights, his record-breaking comeback tour. Kanye's voice is a blade. His death was the cleanest business move Sony ever made, and someone made sure it happened. Kanye steps back, his gaze sweeping the jury like a preacher at a reckoning. This isn't just about Michael, he says. It's about a system that chews up anyone who dares to stand tall. He recites names like a eulogy. Whitney Houston, Prince, DMX, Amy Winehouse, Lisa Left Eye Lopes. Each one he claims defied the industry's chokehold, each one paid with their life. He lingers on Prince, who battled Warner Brothers for his masters, who warned friends he was being watched, only to be found lifeless in an elevator. Prince spoke in riddles those last days, Kanye says. Said death was close, and then it came. On Whitney, who allegedly told Clive Davis she knew too much about freak parties tied to Diddy's circle. Her final days weren't random, Kanye says. They paint you crazy so they don't have to explain your death. Lisa Lopes' name draws a gasp. She filmed herself, Kanye says, days before her car went off a road in Honduras. Said she was hunted. Spirits warned her. No barriers, no brakes. You call that an accident? The jury sits silent, one juror's eyes glistening with tears. Then, a dagger. Biggie Smalls. You think it's a coincidence his murder's unsolved? Kanye asks, his voice sharp. And Diddy's the only one left standing, building an empire on the graves of kings? The weight of his words settles like dust after an explosion. Kanye turns to Diddy, his voice steady but laced with fire. Your brand isn't just music, he says, pointing. It's power, leverage, control. A page from Lil Rod's lawsuit flashes on a screen, alleging Diddy orchestrated a web of sex trafficking, drugs, and bribery. But Kanye goes deeper. This is about influence, he says, about silencing threats before they speak. He describes a pyramid of control, assistants, stylists, bodyguards, lawyers, all serving Diddy's machine. At its apex, Fahim Muhammad. He clears phones, Kanye says. He makes problems vanish. He was there when Michael died. He's here now. What changed? A leaked email from Diddy's raided homes appears, names redacted, but implications stark. Tunnels, Kanye says. Documents, names. Some of those names are in this courtroom. Some run companies. He pauses, letting the jurors feel the chill. You can't fight this with a lawyer, he says. You fight it with a spotlight, and I'm holding it now. Kanye's voice softens, but the intensity doesn't fade. He recounts a conversation with Michael years ago. He told me he was scared, Kanye says. Said people were following him, that someone in his own home was plotting. He never said Diddy's name then, but he described a man. Young, calm, always watching. It was Fahim. The courtroom feels smaller, the walls closing in. Kanye's testimony isn't a rant, it's a revelation, each word peeling back a layer of the industry's veneer. "I'm not here to entertain," he says. "I'm here because a man died and another man got rich from it." A 2010 financial record flashes up, hinting at Diddy's music catalog acquisitions post Michael's death. A rumored $700 million empire built on tragedy. The motive, Kanye suggests, wasn't just power, it was profit. Diddy sits motionless, but his jaw clenches, his fingers twitch. Kanye locks eyes with him. "You know what you did," he says slowly. "You watched the king fall." The room erupts in murmurs. The gavel slams, but the damage is done. Reporters scribble furiously, their phones buzzing with live updates. A Rolling Stone journalist tweets, Diddy's face went blank like he wasn't in control anymore. Outside, the world catches fire. CNN screams, Kanye West says Diddy had Michael Jackson killed. TMZ loops clips of Kanye's testimony. But it's the Jackson family that stops time. Jermaine Jackson posts on Instagram, his words raw. "Kanye said what we couldn't for 15 years. My brother was murdered." LaToya's attorney issues a statement. "Michael didn't die from an overdose. He was silenced. We're ready to speak under oath." Kanye's words rip open a vault long sealed. A leaked AEG email surfaces. Its callousness chilling. He doesn't need to be well. He just needs to make it through opening night. Former Jackson staff contact the court, their voices trembling with urgency. One saw unfamiliar security men in Michael's home the night before he died, their badges gleaming under dim lights. Another heard Michael blast music to drown out voices he thought were piped through the walls. Paris Jackson, insiders whisper, believes her father's death was no accident. Prince's deleted tweet lingers in screenshots. "My father feared the industry, and now I understand why." Prosecutors scramble, revisiting witness lists. Fahim Muhammad's name circulates like a curse, his silence louder than any defense. A retired detective mutters to a reporter, "We missed something in '09. This wasn't just bad medicine. This was a setup." The trial is no longer just about Diddy. It's a referendum on an industry built on control, cover-ups, and ghosts. Kanye, once dismissed as a loudmouth, stands at the center of history, his testimony a spotlight burning through decades of darkness. Social media explodes with his words. "They call me crazy, but I'm just telling the truth." Hashtags trend, not for a new album, but for justice. The final question hangs in the air, unspoken but deafening. Will this change anything? If Kanye is right, if Diddy and his machine orchestrated the fall of the greatest entertainer who ever lived, then this isn't a trial. It's a reckoning, and the spotlight is only beginning to burn. That's how the game works, Kanye seems to say, his eyes fixed on the jury. But not today. Picture this. A penthouse draped in shadows, its only light the soft flicker of candle flames dancing across cold marble and dark-paneled walls. The low thump of a hip-hop beat hums in the background, not loud, but constant, like a pulse that refuses to die. At the center of it all, a young woman, just 19, barely out of girlhood, sits at a sleek mahogany table. Her fingers tremble as they hover above the dotted line. Across from her, Sean Diddy Combs leans forward, calm, composed, his voice smooth like silk stretched over steel. "Sign this," he says, sliding the non-disclosure agreement toward her, the paper pristine, legal, cold. "And your dreams? They'll come true." But the contract is no doorway to destiny. It's a collar, a muzzle, a calculated pact of silence wrapped in the illusion of opportunity. She hesitates, not because she doesn't want it, but because some part of her still hears the warning bells buried beneath the beat. Diddy's eyes stay locked on hers, unblinking. "This is how the game works," he says, and in that moment the line between aspiration and entrapment disappears. She signs. That NDA didn't exist in a vacuum. It wasn't an isolated act of manipulation. It was a page from a playbook used time and again, perfected over years. What she lived was just one instance in a pattern, replicated across decades, spanning hotel suites, studios, backstage rooms, and penthouses just like this one. The real horror isn't just what happened to her, it's that it happened so many times the system no longer needed force. It ran on momentum, and Sean Combs wasn't a passive participant. He was the architect. With Bad Boy Records, he didn't just cultivate stars, he constructed a pipeline, a machine, one that scouted the desperate, seduced the eager, and devoured the compliant. His empire thrived on shadows, NDA after NDA, party after party, the whispers, the favors, the hands that signed for silence. From the infamous freak-offs to the web of enablers paid to protect him, it wasn't just power he held. It was immunity, purchased and reinforced by a culture trained to look away. Then came the footage, grainy, time-stamped, 2016, a hotel hallway. Diddy striking Cassie Ventura, the woman who once stood by his side. It wasn't just an act of violence, it was a rupture. When that video surfaced in May 2024, the damage wasn't just reputational. It tore a hole in the veil, and behind it, more victims, more voices, more stories buried under contracts and careers. This story isn't about scandal, it's about structure. It's about how one man learned to twist power into protection, and how an industry let him do it. The courtroom may now sit in silence, but that penthouse moment still echoes. Proof of a design meant to seduce, isolate, and silence. To understand Diddy's empire, you have to rewind to Harlem, early 1990s. The streets buzzed with ambition, and a young Sean Combs was already more than a music executive. He was a strategist. As he built Bad Boy Records, he wasn't just chasing talent, he was curating control. The targets were always the same: black and brown youth, mostly boys, sometimes girls, often aged 14 to 25. Kids from fractured homes, surviving rough blocks, with dreams bigger than their options. Like John Doe, 16, Brooklyn, 1995. He rapped at a showcase, his verses raw and hungry. Diddy pulled him aside after the applause died. "You're the next Biggie," he told him, eyes gleaming. "But first, you gotta show me you're loyal." John thought he meant the studio, the booth, the grind. He was wrong. Loyalty in Diddy's world meant silence. It meant obedience. It meant giving yourself over, piece by piece, until you couldn't tell where the ambition ended and the exploitation began. Diddy's playbook was meticulous, a predator's strategy cloaked in mentorship. He positioned himself as a savior, offering golden opportunities to those least equipped to question them. Programs like Flavor Camp, billed as artist boot camps, were less about training and more about selection. A former Bad Boy employee speaking anonymously to investigators in 2024 revealed that candidates weren't chosen for their talent alone, but for their malleability. The ideal prey? Someone desperate, isolated, with no one to turn to. "Find the ones who are hungry," Diddy allegedly wrote in a 2010 email to his team, uncovered during the federal probe. "They'll do anything to get out." The process was insidious. Victims were invited to Diddy's homes, studios, or exclusive parties, each step drawing them deeper into his orbit. A female dancer, identified only as Sarah in court documents, recalled her first encounter with Diddy at 18. "I thought I was being groomed to perform," she testified in 2025, her voice steady but heavy. "But I was being taught to stay quiet." Flavor Camp wasn't a launch pad. It was a training ground for compliance. Diddy's team, assistants, scouts, even club promoters, combed through cities, schools, and early social media platforms like MySpace to identify targets. They'd approach kids at open mics, talent shows, or late-night parties, dangling the promise of stardom. Once hooked, the victims were reeled in, their dreams weaponized against them. What made Diddy's approach so effective was its veneer of legitimacy. He wasn't a stranger in a dark alley. He was a cultural icon, a man who turned his own rags to riches story into a brand. To a teenager from the projects, his promises felt like salvation. But every invitation to a party, every late-night studio session was a step toward a trap. The auditions were real, the contracts were signed, but the cost of entry was something no one explained until it was too late. "This is how the game works," Diddy would say, and for those young enough to believe him, the game was already over. Once the trap was set, Sean Diddy Combs didn't need to use force, at least not at first. His weapon was subtler, more insidious. The atmosphere he created, a carefully curated blend of allure, fear, and inevitability. Picture a Miami penthouse, its walls lined with mirrors reflecting every angle of the room, the air thick with the scent of liquor and sweat. Diddy sits in a leather armchair, his presence commanding, his eyes locking onto a young woman handed a glass of champagne. "Drink," he says, not as an order, but as an expectation. She hesitates, but his gaze doesn't falter. "This is how the game works," he adds, the phrase a mantra that echoes through every corner of his empire. Cassie Ventura, his former girlfriend, described it in her 2023 testimony. "He didn't force me to drink, but his eyes told me I had to." That moment, that glass, was the first step in a psychological unraveling, a process designed to erase boundaries until victims no longer recognized right from wrong. Diddy's manipulation was a masterclass in control, a three-step descent into submission. Step 1. The drink, often laced with GHB or ketamine, blurring consciousness just enough to dull resistance. Step 2. The introduction of sexual acts, framed as part of the party's culture. The infamous freak-off parties were no spontaneous bacchanals. They were scripted performances, complete with strangers invited to participate, cameras rolling to capture every moment, and Diddy orchestrating from the center. A female victim, identified as Jane Roe in court filings, recounted her first freak-off in 2024. "They handed me a red dress, checked my weight, 128 pounds, good enough, and led me into a room with mirrors everywhere. I felt like I was playing a role, and if I didn't perform, I'd be cut." Step 3. Normalization. Over time, victims stopped questioning. They observed, adapted, and accepted the depravity as the cost of staying in Diddy's world. The September 2024 indictment revealed chilling evidence. Over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and vials of sedatives found in Diddy's Holmby Hills mansion. Tools of a machine built to break wills. Jane Roe's voice cracked as she testified, "They gave me a drink. When I woke up, I was on a screen doing things I didn't remember. Diddy said, 'Keep this quiet or everyone sees.'" The mirrors in that penthouse weren't just decor. They were a metaphor for Diddy's control, reflecting his victims back to themselves, distorted and powerless. The freak-offs were theaters of compliance, where every act was choreographed to make deviants feel routine. A former party planner speaking to investigators described the precision. "There were rules, weight limits, dress codes, no tattoos. If you looked tired, they'd drip you with drugs to keep going." Victims became actors in a play they didn't write, their shame recorded as leverage. The process was so gradual, so deliberate, that many didn't realize they'd been stripped of agency until it was too late. By the time they saw themselves on those screens, the game had already claimed them. But Diddy's control didn't end when the party did. The penthouse doors may have opened, but an invisible cage snapped shut around his victims. Non-disclosure agreements, often signed by teenagers as young as 14, were the first bars of that cage, carrying penalties of $1 million per violation. A 2024 court exhibit displayed one such NDA, its fine print a labyrinth of threats disguised as legalese. Beyond the contracts, Diddy built a surveillance network that rivaled a small intelligence agency. Drivers, bodyguards, assistants, and even lawyers formed a web, tracking victims' every move. A former bodyguard testifying anonymously admitted, "I was told to log every call they made, every address they visited. If they stepped out of line, I reported it." The system was airtight, designed to detect any hint of rebellion. When federal agents raided Diddy's properties in March 2024, they uncovered over 100 laptops and phones, a digital vault holding terabytes of freak-off footage, meticulously cataloged like trophies. The cage wasn't just technological, it was social. Diddy's parties were star-studded affairs, attended by A-list rappers, actors, and moguls, their presence lending an air of normalcy to the depravity. A victim recalled a chilling moment. "I saw a famous rapper watch as I was pulled into a room. He turned away like it was his cue." The silence of those celebrities was as crucial as the NDAs, a collective agreement to look the other way. Not because they didn't see, but because they knew when to avert their eyes. "It wasn't that no one saw," a witness later told prosecutors. "It's that everyone knew when to look away." That complicity, that unspoken code, turned Diddy's world into a prison without walls, where victims were watched, judged, and silenced by an entire ecosystem built to protect its king. The cameras stopped rolling, but the threat never did. For those who dared to speak, Sean "Diddy" Combs had a playbook to silence them, a ruthless machine that crushed dissent with precision. When Cassie Ventura filed her lawsuit in November 2023, accusing Diddy of years of abuse, the backlash was swift. Anonymous calls flooded her phone, their messages chilling. "You'll never work again." Tabloids, fueled by Diddy's PR team, branded her a gold digger, their headlines screaming betrayal. A female singer, known for a single hit in 2009, faced a darker fate. After hinting at Diddy's secrets in a radio interview, her career vanished overnight. No gigs, no contracts, no trace. Whispers in the industry pointed to a car accident in 2017 that claimed a cameraman who'd allegedly kept copies of freak-off footage. The police called it a tragedy. Insiders called it convenient. Diddy's reach extended beyond threats and disappearances. He wielded media like a weapon, with outlets like Page Six publishing glowing profiles, such as a 2019 piece hailing him as a philanthropic titan, days after a victim filed an anonymous complaint. Churches, too, played their part, with pastors praising Diddy's donations while ignoring the screams behind his generosity. An email uncovered in the 2024 federal probe laid it bare. Diddy's PR team instructed an associate to handle a victim with a $50,000 payout, adding, "Make it quick." This wasn't about protecting an image. This was about rebuilding a god from the ashes of his sins. "I got a call at 3 a.m., a former Bad Boy intern testified in 2025, her voice trembling. "They said if I talked, my family would pay." Diddy's empire didn't just silence voices. It erased them, leaving behind a trail of broken lives and unanswered questions. But Diddy didn't operate in a vacuum. His power was propped up by the gatekeepers of pop culture, figures whose influence shielded him from scrutiny. Names like Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, and T.D. Jakes didn't stain their hands with blood, but their clout cast a long shadow. When allegations surfaced, Diddy's team leaned on firms like Sunshine Sachs to orchestrate charity galas, where Perry and Oprah appeared alongside him, their presence a silent endorsement. A leaked 2020 email revealed the strategy: get Tyler and O at the event. It'll drown out the noise. The noise was a lawsuit from a 22-year-old dancer buried under headlines about Diddy's generosity. T.D. Jakes, whose megachurch received millions from Diddy, preached sermons on forgiveness while sidestepping the accusations. Comedian Monique, in a 2024 interview, didn't mince words. They don't apologize. They buy silence. Her words painted a picture of a machine that operated like a cathedral, producing silence instead of salvation. Social media wasn't spared. X post from November 2024 exposed an influencer paid $10,000 to post a video defending Diddy, calling him a victim of cancel culture. These gatekeepers didn't just protect Diddy, they laundered his reputation, turning a predator into a pillar of the community. "I saw Oprah at one of his parties," a former assistant testified. "She smiled, shook hands, and left before the real show began." Their power wasn't in what they did, but in what they chose not to see. Their silence as deafening as the music in Diddy's penthouses. Diddy's story isn't the heart of the problem. It's a symptom of a deeper rot. The real scandal lies in a culture that thrives on deliberate amnesia, where power is built on the bones of the silenced. Why did it take decades for the truth to surface? Who profited from the quiet? The 2016 video of Diddy assaulting Cassie Ventura, once a fleeting rumor, now plays on a courtroom screen. Its grainy frames exposing a man who thought himself untouchable. But the light doesn't just shine on him, it illuminates an industry that watched, nodded, and turned away. Cassie, Jane Roe, and countless others broke the rules of the game, their courage cracking open a vault of secrets. Yet the question lingers, who's next? What boy or girl, eyes bright with dreams, will step into a room lit by candles, a camera whirring in the dark? I signed the NDA at 17, Cassie said in her 2025 testimony, her voice steady. But I'm not signing my silence anymore. Her words are a call to arms, a challenge to an audience that's been complicit too long. This isn't just Diddy's trial, it's a reckoning for everyone who looked away. Will you keep watching the screen, or will you demand the light stays on? The game only works if we let it. The gavel may fall, but the story is far from over. The shadows cast by Diddy's empire still linger, and more voices wait to break free. Join us as we unravel the next chapters, tales of courage, betrayal, and truth that will shake the foundations of power. Stay vigilant, stay tuned, for the revelations are just beginning. Until then, thank you for standing with us in this pursuit of justice. Farewell, and see you in the light of what comes next.